Welcome to the Runway, where we cover current events in crypto, Web3, and tech. It's Monday, March 11th. Let's take off. First up, Bitcoin soared to a record high of more than 72,000 on Monday after a financial regulator in the United Kingdom gave the green light to a cryptocurrency-backed investment vehicle. I don't know if this is really the reason Bitcoin's soaring to an all-time high. I think it just has to do with the supply and demand of these ETFs that have been approved, and I think the demand there is just insanely strong. So I think we're just starting to see the very start of that demand take place in the market and acquire Bitcoin daily. MicroStrategy uses 800 million note offering to buy more Bitcoin, holds 205,000 Bitcoin. MicroStrategy has completed its latest note offering, raising over 800 million to buy more Bitcoin for its treasury reserve. American software technology firm MicroStrategy has completed a fresh 800 million convertible note offering and wants to add another 12,000 Bitcoin to its treasury reserve. I think this is the strategy has just been exceptional for Michael Saylor, and I think it's played out very well. So I think that this is going to continue. He's going to continue adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. Bitcoin miner Bitfarms purchases additional 51,908 ASICs amid bull market. I thought this was a pretty clever and good deal. The price of Bitcoin has reached an all-time high above 72,000. Canadian Bitcoin miner Bitfarms exercised an option on March 11th to purchase 28,000 Bitmain T21 ASIC miners and 19,280 Bitmain T21 miners for $14 per terahash, as well as 3,888 Bitmain S21 miners and 740 Bitmain S21 Hydro miners for $17.50 per terahash, for a total of 51,908 ASICs. So the price per terahash on these miners has been climbing, and as the market continues to go up and the market changes, these miners sort of trade at premiums of what their sort of fiat cash flow is going to be relative in Bitcoin, right? So if the price of Bitcoin goes up, these machines yield in the future. They're predicted to yield more USD because the same amount of Bitcoin that they're yielding is worth more in US dollar terms, right? So they sort of trade almost like stocks and equities in the sense that the prices can change from on a daily time frame, right? So as we move into a bull market, the price of these machines sort of goes up. So Bitfarms executed quite a smart play here, where they negotiated sort of almost an options contract where they were able to buy at a lower price and they would sort of execute that deal, right? So if we do the math here, if you multiply 14, which is the price per terahash, and you multiply 190, which is the expected terahash of the total machine, you get a number here that shows you 2660, right? So they're buying these machines for a price of $2,660. While the market price has been rising, the machines now cost $3,000. If the price of Bitcoin goes up more, these machines might cost even more. So they're sort of exercising this contract sort of at a discount, which is a smart play by Bitfarms. Next up, Trump pumps crypto, sneakers and CNBC interview after posting $92 million bond. This was kind of funny. Just a few days after Donald Trump posted a nearly $92 million bond for defaming the writer E. Jean Carroll, and then went on to apparently defame her again. Let's see, Mr. Kevin T. Dugan, the author of this article. Again, ridiculous what they're doing in New York and kind of what's going on. This lady is a wackadoodle. She's living in a forest on a farm. I mean, who knows what she's doing? She's definitely quite the critter, quite the character. Obviously, this very partisan political behavior occurring in New York. Would not want to be doing business there, and it is a state that I will personally avoid doing business in. That being said, let's talk a little bit about what's happening. Crazy new currencies is what he calls them now. I do little things sometimes for fun. Make money with it. Have fun with it too, he added. Trump, you might remember, has dabbled in digital currencies before. There are the NFTs depicting him as a glorious leader or in various kinds of ridiculous heroic guises as a samurai or a cowboy. I wish I looked as good as I do on those cards. That I can tell you. They give me muscles where, believe me, I don't have them, he said in a promotional video. But Trump didn't appear on the Financial News Network just to give his thoughts on the crypto market. He had money-making schemes to talk about, made all the more urgent by his $500 million in rising debt to the U.S. court system. Trump is facing a little bit of cash crunch at the moment since the SPAC for his social media network, Truth Social, appears to be tied up in litigation, and New York Attorney General Letitia James has threatened to seize his assets if he doesn't pay for defrauding the state over the inflated values of his properties. It's really unbelievable what the weaponization of the judicial system that's happening in New York. I would, as Kevin O'Leary, Shark Tank guy, these are loser states, and doesn't make sense to do business and deploy capital there. And I strongly echo that sentiment. I mean, this is absurd behavior of what's happening. It's very partisan. It's a witch hunt, and it really should have no place in America. This is like some third world bullshit going on by this racist Letitia James and these clown judges that are practicing in New York. It's very disturbing. Bitcoin is not something Trump appears to have much interest in hodling, he implied. However, he seems extremely happy to see that apparently people are paying him in Bitcoin for his never surrender gold sneakers, which are somehow both limited edition and made to order. In a surprise to absolutely no one, people have been using Bitcoin to purchase these sneakers. I will sometimes let people pay through Bitcoin. I will let people get involved in. If you think of it, it's an additional form of currency, he said. Bitcoin broke through new all-time highs above 72,000 on Monday morning. He went on, the last pair sold for $450,000, he said. People were going crazy for these sneakers. You probably were too. Everybody was. Every friend I have had called me for a pair of sneakers, and I noticed that so many of them were paid for with the new currency. It's a new cryptocurrency. I couldn't believe the amount. I mean, $450,000 for a pair of sneakers seems pretty absurd. Trump is quite the character, as we all know. Whether you love him or hate him, he is quite a polarizing figure. Take all that for what it's worth, but Trump does appear to see the utility that comes with loving crypto, namely that there are a lot of people who own it, and some of those people might vote for him. This is very true. Elsewhere in the interview, Trump implied he wouldn't crack down on crypto if he's elected back into the Oval Office, to the extent that's different from the Biden administration, under which a slate of Bitcoin ETFs recently were approved, albeit reluctantly, is still to be determined. Yeah, I don't think it's still to be determined with the way this administration's been behaving. I think it's pretty obvious that this current administration is an enemy of Web3 and of our technology sector. The crypto lobby has also become an electoral force during this election and has already helped defeat California Representative Katie Porter in her Senate domination bid. Whatever the reason, Trump may be in need of even more crypto soon. During his interview, he went on to again go after Carol, calling her Miss Bergdorf Goodman, and said wrongly that she had leveled a false accusation against him. I love how this author loves to input his bias in. He's obviously appealing the case. I mean, the ruling is just totally absurd. I mean, if you look at this woman, I mean, she is just unbelievably, in my opinion, incompetent. And she can't remember what's happening, can't do this. I mean, this is absurd. She leveled a false accusation against him. He's appealing. A lawyer for Carol told Maggie Haberman of the New York Times that the statute of limitations for defamation in most jurisdictions is between 1 and 3 years. As we said after the last jury verdict, we continue to monitor every statement that Donald Trump makes about our client, E. Jean Carroll. God, I saw some videos of this Carroll critter living in the forest and like living in some kind of little hut or something, little green hut with bunch of sexual innuendos and statements all over it. I mean, this lady is clearly like a nut job. I mean, how this occurs in the United States and how a court can do this is just this is just un-American. I actually looked this up. Trump actually did go on Twitter and sort of shill his NFT on CNBC. It's kind of wild. If you want to listen to this, we'll post this in the link. Before we go on to the next story, let me just talk a little bit about the landscape with the presidential election and what my thoughts are. I saw recently like a 6-minute interview that Bankless did with RFK Jr. in which he spent about 6 minutes talking about the technology and the innovation, and he really gets it and understands the industry, I would say, more so than any other political candidate. So I would say sort of option 1A for crypto and the crypto and Web3 community, of presidential candidates that are still in the race, I would have RFK Jr. at number 1. And obviously, other candidates like Vivek have dropped out of the race, so they're no longer in the running. And I would say that Trump would definitely be the second option. As you can see, he's launched ordinal collections for NFTs. He's launched Ethereum collections for NFTs. He's engaging with the space. He's shown that he's open-minded. He might not understand things deeply, but he wants to enable the innovation. He doesn't want to stamp down on a new industry, similar to what the Biden administration is doing, right? So either RFK Jr. as option number 1, and Donald Trump as option number 2. But the current administration is definitely not an option. We've just seen what Elizabeth Warren's been doing, what Gary Gensler's been doing, what the OTC and the CFTC have been doing. I'm sorry, the OTC, I believe, have been doing behind the scenes. What the EIA is now doing, trying to do to Bitcoin miners. And the courts have pushed back on that. The courts have pushed back on the SEC. The SEC has sort of lost in court. The other SEC commissioners are openly now mocking the current SEC chair, which is just ridiculous. You never really see that, but that's what we're seeing now, right? So this current administration is definitely the worst case scenario for our industry. So these are kind of my takes going into the election, is that having watched RFK Jr. at the Bitcoin Miami conference speak, you can tell he understands the innovation and he gets the opportunity, right? He has dug deep on the issue. He has an understanding and he wants to empower and enable American exceptionalism, right? So he's option one, and then option two would be Donald Trump, who is, leaning from an indifferent stance to more of a let people do what they want, sort of enable this asset class in this industry, and also engaging and participating, right? He sees opportunity to innovate and to create cultural NFTs and sort of put that on a blockchain, and he's starting to see the potential there. I think even his wife, Melania, has launched an NFT collection, right? So you're seeing an open engagement with the industry and an openness to listen to people, and listen to people like Vivek who are in his ear educating him, listening to his maybe his son-in-law and other people that are a little bit younger and a little bit more plugged in, and also participate in the space, right? So I think it's going to be a stark difference if really the only two candidates that are left at the end of the day are Trump and Biden, and those are really the only two options. And I hope that's not the case. I hope RFK Jr. can make a push here, because I think he really would be the best option overall for the industry. But a Trump administration is definitely something that the industry would be happy with, right? I think personally. So, and again, these are not have to do with any other issues, any other industries, or any other. This is like a single voter issue here. If you are in the Web3 or crypto space, these thoughts are sort of well documented. If you look at Ryan Selkis and some of his work with all the research and stuff he's done, he highlights this as well. So these are my thoughts when it comes to that. Let's move on to our next story. This is a little how crypto imposters are using Calendly to infect Macs with malware. So I thought this was a little article, and I just wanted to, as we move into this sort of more bullish cycle, guys, be careful, beware. If you're using self-custody, if you are engaging with DeFi, if you are engaging with MetaMask and sort of Web3, and you're active in the space, please be careful. The links you click, the transactions you approve on your devices, there's always threats and vulnerabilities that are attack vectors, right? Emails that are sent to click a link and do certain things. Be very skeptical. Always be skeptical, and never, your first inclination when you get something, is it too good to be true? Is someone giving away free money? Is there a sense of, are they trying to rush you? Is an emergency, right? Those things are all things you should be skeptical of, right? And if you're not, you're going to get burned, and you're going to learn your lesson, right? So then next time around, a lot of people have to learn the hard way, right? That's just the way it works. And, no matter what you do, sometimes you have to pay for your education. So what they say is experience is a good teacher. So hopefully you can be smart and wise and not have to experience that and learn from other people's mistakes. Next up, America deserves a financial alternative, and it's crypto. Crypto is in the foundational stages of a great technological financial revolution. We can't let it pass us by. We live in an era of unprecedented surveillance, control, and hidden costs imposed by intermediaries. Big tech companies control the information you see while silencing voices their content moderators don't agree with. Big banks charge hidden fees on their users, while credit card companies charge fees on small businesses. And the federal government every day takes steps closer to a central bank digital currency, or CBDC, the ultimate step in financial surveillance and control. The American people deserve an alternative, and that alternative is already here today. Crypto, blockchain-based networks, and the decentralized social media and financial services built on top of them. We are in the foundational stages of this next great technological and financial revolution, a change that promises to bring greater economic freedom, financial privacy, and economic mobility to everyday people across America and throughout the world. Today, it is possible to send value using crypto and blockchain networks near instantaneously to anyone, anywhere in the world, without any associated wiring fees from banks or money transmitters. Using decentralized financial services, Americans can access loans and credit based on deposited assets, rather than opaque third-party credit scores. Leveraging on-chain scarcity, NFTs are used in modern event ticketing services, ensuring that resold tickets aren't duplicated and sold to multiple buyers. Supply chain companies leverage blockchain-based tracking technology to increase the reliability of shipping goods around the globe. And in a world of AI-generated images and articles spreading across the internet, crypto-based content provenance helps to combat fake news. As with all emerging technology, the United States should be at the forefront of crypto development and embrace new frontiers of possibility and prosperity, while staying one step ahead of our global competitors. However, many policymakers in Washington, D.C. have ignored crypto's substantial potential, while fundamentally failing to understand its importance. Worse yet, some members of Congress are actively working to stop crypto altogether, damaging the long-term economic and foreign affairs interests of the United States. The last time America let a strategic technology leave its shores, as we did with the semiconductor manufacturing, the federal government had to expend billions of taxpayer dollars to bring it back to the United States. It will take a new generation of forward-thinking U.S. lawmakers to be leaders in this next great economic revolution. Congress must act quickly to secure America's place in the development of these technologies. If not, America stands to lose out on shaping and participating in one of the greatest leadership and economic opportunities of the 21st century. Crypto technologies offer unparalleled economic freedoms, the likes of which we have yet to even fully realize. For Americans, it means access to money management, payment, and investment tools outside of the conventional infrastructure. Crypto provides enhanced security, better privacy, and more accessibility. It is a system that grants true financial autonomy to the individual without the intrusions into private personal information by third party or government monitoring. You, the American individual, are the ultimate controller of your assets, and an internet connection or cell signal is all that you need to liberate yourself. With that freedom comes unlimited potential in a global market, where crypto technologies and stablecoins unlock loan access, long-term investment growth, and trade in the global economy. People finally have the power to directly interact with each other without the intrusion of banks or governments. Crypto frees us from the established system of exorbitant fees, government surveillance, and regulation that have shackled the individual for generations. Due to its fundamental decentralization, crypto is not tied to any single government or institution. It is a medium of exchange free from censorship, bureaucratic manipulation, and the effects of inflation and financial downturns tied to national economies or central bank control. While these benefits may be underappreciated in more economically stable states, this kind of economic freedom and security can be life-changing and life-saving for people who live in near constant economic turmoil due to unstable governments. Crypto has the power to lift entire regions out of poverty. Critics of these new financial instruments of freedom have used bureaucracy to unfairly target law-abiding crypto companies, their founders, and customers. Biden administration regulators have even gone so far as to force banks to deny them banking services. In Washington, Democrat Senators Elizabeth Warren and Jackie Rosen have joined the Biden administration in vocally opposing the very foundations of crypto technology. And a group of lawmakers and government bureaucrats are currently working on the development of a central bank digital currency, which would allow the government to monitor and control what Americans spend their hard-earned dollars on. These actions not only fly in the face of freedom, they are antithetical to the very ideals of America. If elected to the U.S. Senate, I will work to end the unconstitutional crackdown on crypto and crypto companies, preserving the rights of Americans to self-custody their own digital assets, and work with other patriots in Congress to establish clear guidelines for American crypto companies to reach their full potential. And I will work to make Nevada a national destination for these innovative companies and ensure Nevadans have the right to transact freely, safe from government surveillance. Crypto is here to stay. Rather than shutting out crypto, Congress should be embracing it. America has the opportunity to attract new businesses, create thousands of new jobs, and become the trusted home of crypto companies from across the world. We must act now to secure crypto's future in America before we lose this opportunity to other countries. By now, most people have heard of NFTs, a digital crypto asset containing a signature that makes each token singular in existence, unique to the individual. This is the future that crypto offers each of us. An economic landscape personalized and governed by the individual, our very own non-fungible sovereignty, in a world of limitless potential that is just beginning to be explored. So I wanted to read this whole article because this is a candidate who's running for office, and his name is Sam Brown, I believe, and it looks like he's running in Nevada. But this is the kind of leadership that we need from our politicians. This is the kind of understanding that we need from our politicians. So Sam Brown, a Purple Heart recipient and former infantry officer, transitioned from military service to entrepreneurship after a life-changing injury in Afghanistan. Graduating with an MBA from Southern Methodist University, he leveraged his leadership skills and business acumen to establish a successful small business providing emergency pharmaceutical support to veterans. An early adopter of cryptocurrency, Sam invested in Bitcoin in 2017. Now, as he runs for U.S. Senate in Nevada, Sam embodies a new generation of conservative leadership driven by a commitment to service and a strong understanding of both traditional business and emerging financial technologies. So these are the kind of candidates we need to support. This is the future of our nation. And thank you, Sam Brown, for writing that powerful and great article. Let's move on to some Twitter takes. Bitcoin all-time high in every single currency. Hard money is eating the world. kind of shows all the different currencies around the world and Bitcoin making a new all-time high. Here is a Twitter post from my friend Steven Lubka. He says here, Bitwise states that they are having serious due diligence discussions with major wirehouses, institutional consultants, large corporations, and the following groups are buying the ETF. Individual retail investors, registered investment advisors, family offices, hedge funds, venture capital funds, asset managers. Let's go. The demand from the ETFs is just starting. I think we're kind of at like 20 to 30% capacity here. And I think eventually this is going to open up to many more parties, many more sort of investment advisors and more hedge funds and more institutional sort of wealth management, some pension funds and sort of different things where they will get a small exposure to these different assets and the different asset classes, right? With Bitcoin increasingly becoming a part of those portfolios and those ETF mixes and baskets. Here's Bill Ackman. A scenario: Bitcoin price leads to increased mining and greater energy use, driving up the cost of energy, causing inflation to rise and the dollar to decline, driving demand for Bitcoin and increased mining, driving demand for energy, and the cycle continues. Bitcoin goes to infinity, energy prices skyrocket, and the economy collapses. Maybe I should buy some Bitcoin. So it doesn't look like he has a really firm grasp or understanding just yet, but we will continue to try to orange pill him and have him understand better. I think people like Michael Saylor commenting on here. So here, Daniel Batten is really fantastic as well. He says, the logic breaks down at the greater energy use, drives up the price of energy. Bitcoin mining is a user par excellence of stranded wasted energy, with ERCOT's CEO crediting it for keeping power prices low. Plus, learn more about the domain before you misinform your people. Pretty good take here. This isn't remotely likely. Even in the most bullish scenarios, Bitcoin mining doesn't consume a meaningful share of energy generation. See my models in this paper. Nick linked to one of his papers. So here's Michael Saylor. You should buy some Bitcoin, but not for the reasons cited above. Most Bitcoin miners are driving the cost of electricity down for other consumers, not up. Let me know if you'd like to discuss one-on-one. So I think we've discussed this at length, but more people will start to learn and understand. People are okay with these other consumers of energy because their utility is obvious to them. Once a person learns how Bitcoin is already being used to benefit humanity, doing something far more valuable than dry hair and clothes, all concern about energy consumption withers. Here is Vivek. We never heard from Satoshi after this. I thought this was interesting. One of his posts, and this is Gavin Andreessen, who on the Bitcoin Talk forum, he had this post, and this was kind of like the last time after he posted this, Satoshi sort of disappeared forever, except for what they do claim. He said, I am not Dorian Nakamoto. So here he says, I want to get this out in the open because it is the kind of thing that will generate conspiracy theories. I'm going to give a presentation about Bitcoin at CIA headquarters in June at an emerging technologies conference for the U.S. intelligence community. I accept the invitation to speak because the fact that I was invited means Bitcoin is already on the radar, and I think it might be a good chance to talk about why I think Bitcoin will make the world a better place. I think the goals of this project are to create a better currency, create a more competitive and efficient international payment system, and give people more direct control over their finances. And I don't think any of these goals are incompatible with the goals of government. I think you're wet behind the ears, my friend. I'm only very slightly worried about talking about Bitcoin at the CIA will increase the chances they'll try to do something we don't want them to do. I think accepting their invitation and being open about exactly what Bitcoin is will make it less likely they'll see it as a threat. P.S. Full disclosure, I'll be paid a one-time fee of $3,000 to cover expenses and pay me for my time. I don't want any Gavin is on the CIA's payroll rumors to get started either. As always, comments and questions and discussion welcome. I'd really rather not hear any conspiracy theories about how they'll secretly implant a mind control chip in my head while I'm there, though. So it is interesting that this was the last that anyone ever heard from Satoshi, really. Aside from this one post that is that he made, that is sort of questionable if he actually made it or not. I lean towards thinking he did make that post, that he's not Dorian Nakamoto, but remain to be determined. So this is kind of an interesting sort of overlay of what Michael Saylor did here in his playbook, Hacking Corporate Finance, the Saylor Playbook, balance sheet, assets and liabilities. So all of his liabilities are in dollars because he keeps taking out money to buy Bitcoin, and now he has assets of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And so far, that's working out brilliantly for him. Walker America. I'm going to read this because it's sort of describes why a lot of us are in this sort of industry, why we support Bitcoin, and why we're sort of involved in Web3. Imagine a cult where instead of having a leader, there is no leader. Where instead of secrecy, there is transparency. Where instead of closed doors open only to some, there is openness for everyone. Where instead of strict controls on what you can say and do, you are free to say and do whatever you want. Where instead of conformity being required, individuality is celebrated. where instead of living only in the fervor of the moment, you are encouraged to think long-term so you may build a better future for yourself and your family. Or instead of your possessions, thoughts, and your very soul being given over to the collective, individual sovereignty over one's identity and property is supreme. That's the Bitcoin cult. Welcome, Anon. Here's an interesting little sort of take from Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock. He kind of talks about some of the value propositions of Bitcoin. I'm not going to play the whole 2 minutes here. You can go watch it on your own time and get a feel for it. I think Larry's starting to get it. I mean, I think he wasn't quite knowledgeable enough to push back on some of the points of the interviewer. One of them being kind of pushing for gold and other assets and basically saying Bitcoin's just a ledger, right? So my comment here is, yes, it's literally a ledger, an incorruptible, globally decentralized, 24/7, 365 global ledger for all of humanity. The one thing I forgot to add was permissionless, but I don't think I can edit my posts anymore. Well, I guess not. I forgot to add that. Alex Gladstein is sort of highlighting here, the economist is starting to understand how Bitcoin mining is going to revolutionize electricity access in Africa. This was bound to happen eventually. Some of us are more cynical and think it only happened because the ETFs and all of their money is now going towards putting finance behind this narrative, although it is a true narrative. Here is Lawrence Lepard, and he's got a pretty good little clip here talking about hyper-Bitcoinization from the What Bitcoin Did podcast and Peter McCormick. They kind of like talk about sort of hyper-Bitcoinization. And for those of you who don't know, hyper-Bitcoinization is basically when the whole economy Bitcoin is really the unit of account for the world, as opposed to the US dollar or any other fiat currency. D.S. Batten. Why did the late Brad Jones, former CEO of ERCOT, say that Bitcoin miners keep the price of energy low for all Texans? 3 main ways Bitcoin mining uses surplus renewable energy that otherwise grid operators have to pay renewable operators to curtail, provides a more competitive marketplace for demand response, driving down the overall cost of ancillary services to grid operators. 3, provides additional revenue to grid operators, increasing their profitability and reducing need to increase prices. Next time you hear the FUD that Bitcoin mining raises energy prices, you may like to point out that the actual grid operator, the data, and peer-reviewed research does not only do not support this, but say the opposite. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tag Mr. Bill Ackman. See if we can get him on this thread. Get him a little education. Start here, brother. Oh, it looks like someone already did see him. Bitcoin Rothbard. Maybe if more people that tag him, maybe he'll see it. Again, more disgusting behavior from the swamp creatures. Senator Elizabeth Warren tried to weaponize the administrative state to attack Bitcoin mining and pave the way for a CBDC monopoly. This is a reprehensible abuse of political power. Here's a letter from February 2023 with her demands. So, of course, she's behind this whole thing, trying to basically have all of these private companies disclose all their proprietary information and stuff that has now been stopped in the court systems. But I'm not surprised that Elizabeth Warren is behind that. And finally, I'm going to leave you guys with this. One can study a bank for 100 years and not know what it will do tomorrow. One can study a smart contract for a week and know precisely. Humans do not operate with predictable precision. Code does. Both can have errors, but only the latter can be fixed, improved, and built upon with engineering rigor. This is why finance must, and obviously will, migrate with time from the shaky foundation of the former to a robust foundation of the latter. Stay safe, stay blessed, never stop learning, and keep an open mind. Thanks for listening.